Rachaded Glory, The Silent Veil. Chapter 1. The Shadow of Deception. Introduce the new character, Madam Lin, a deep-cover Chinese intelligence operative posing as a legitimate businesswoman running massage parlors across Jacksonville, Florida. Her operations serve a dual purpose: to collect sensitive information from high-ranking military officers, federal officials, and state politicians through compromising situations. Her establishment, the Silk Lotus, is particularly favored by officials stationed at nearby military bases. Her calm, calculated demeanor masks the darker purpose behind her success. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. In this chapter, focus on Victor Don Sharp, who is quietly monitoring international influences in America. Sharp's intelligence network catches wind of unusual activity linked to the parlor. However, before he can act, his priorities shift to another mission. Meanwhile, the compromised Rear Admiral Wesley Caldwell, a once respected Navy official, is being blackmailed into leaking critical naval intelligence. Chapter 3. Raven's Return. Rachel Raven Eldridge returns from a covert operation abroad and is tasked by General Genrich to investigate rumors of a compromised high-ranking military official. Her investigation leads her to Caldwell, and she uncovers his visits to the Silk Lotus. Realizing the potential threat, Raven goes undercover as a masseuse to infiltrate Madam Lin's operation and gather more intelligence on Caldwell and other compromised officials. Chapter 4. The Network Unraveled. As Raven delves deeper into her undercover role, she begins to understand the extent of the Chinese influence. The parlors are a front for an intricate network of spies and informants, with Madam Lin at the center, playing a long game of subtle blackmail and manipulation. Raven slowly builds trust with Lin's inner circle, while trying to avoid detection. Chapter 5. The Rear Admiral's Fall. Raven finds irrefutable proof of Rear Admiral Caldwell's blackmail situation. He is forced to hand over classified naval codes in exchange for the safety of his family, who are being closely monitored by Lin's network. Raven is torn between exposing Caldwell or trying to save him from further manipulation. In this chapter, Raven must also navigate her growing moral conflict while maintaining her cover. Chapter 6. Layers of Betrayal. Caldwell attempts to contact Raven secretly, but their meeting is interrupted by Madam Lin's enforcers. Raven must think fast to maintain her cover while subtly encouraging Caldwell to resist further blackmail. Meanwhile, Carlos becomes involved after learning about Lin's connections to a broader globalist movement, possibly linked to the Architect. Chapter 7. The Architect's Influence. The Architect's shadow looms over the situation. It's revealed that Lin's operation ties into his greater global ambitions, leveraging compromised officials to influence U.S. military decisions. Carlos and Raven realize that Lin's operation is just one piece of a larger plot aimed at destabilizing America's strategic capabilities, but they struggle to find enough evidence to make their case. Chapter 8. The Silk Lotus Bears Thorns. Raven uncovers that other high-ranking officials have also been compromised. While Madam Lin appears sophisticated and gracious, her methods of control are brutal. The chapter details Lin's complex methods of extracting secrets, using psychological manipulation, subtle threats, and, when necessary, force. Chapter 9. Striking at the Heart Raven and her allies stage an operation to expose Madam Lin's operation without compromising her mission. A covert raid on one of the smaller parlors yields evidence of Lin's links to Chinese intelligence, but it's not enough to shut down the operation entirely. Lin becomes aware that her network is being infiltrated and takes steps to shore up her defenses, making Raven's position even more precarious. Chapter 10. The Rear Admiral's Redemption. After an intense internal struggle, Rear Admiral Caldwell chooses to help Raven. With his aid, they manage to smuggle out crucial data on Lin's connections to Chinese intelligence. Caldwell's cooperation comes at a cost. He sacrifices his career to prevent more damaging leaks and to keep his family safe. His arc concludes with a moment of personal redemption, even though his fall from grace is public and irreversible. Chapter 11. The Unraveling Web. Madam Lin grows suspicious of Raven and sets a trap to expose her. In a tense game of cat and mouse, Raven narrowly escapes exposure but loses key allies within Lin's operation. Lin, however, is not invincible. The deeper Raven digs, the more cracks appear in Lin's control, revealing overconfidence and growing paranoia among Lin's subordinates. Chapter 12. The Final Gambit. Raven, Sharp, and Carlos orchestrate a final takedown of Lin's network. The mission becomes a race against time as Lin plans to flee the country, taking with her a treasure trove of U.S. secrets. Raven goes on a final, high-risk mission to stop Lin before she can escape, facing off against her in a climactic confrontation that tests both her combat skills and her ability to outmaneuver Lin's cunning mind. Chapter 13. Victory's Price. Madam Lin's operation is exposed, but not without cost. The repercussions of the compromised officials' actions leave lasting damage to the U.S. military and government trust. Raven reflects on the personal toll the mission has taken, especially on her growing disillusionment with the global power struggles around her. The chapter ends with Raven preparing for her next mission, as the war against globalist forces like the Architect continues but with no clear end in sight. Raven Eldridge is having a lovely day.